Hello, everyone. I just finished this. It's backwards because my camera's mirrored. It's the Uncharted collection if you don't read backwards. I finished all 3 games, just finished 3 yesterday, and I was surprised by how good they were and how much I enjoyed them. For those who don't know, the Uncharted games I wouldn't call them shooters, but I would say about 60% of the gameplay is shooting, maybe even 70. And then the other percentage is a lot of climbing, a lot of exploring, and some puzzle solving as well as you kind of go through these dungeon-esque areas. It reminds me of kind of like a more mature style, like Zelda. Like some of the puzzles felt similar to like Zelda puzzles. But I really enjoyed them. I really like the characters. I really like the story for the most part. More on that later. In this video, also note that my syntax might be a little off. I'm going to be a lot of times probably slipping up and saying best in the series or worst in the series or that type of talk. I have not played Uncharted 4 yet. My plan is to do that next week. I have not played The Lost Legacy, and I have not played the Vita game. So bear that in mind whenever I say blah, blah, blah in the series or something. I'm talking the trilogy, not at all talking about the other games. But first, Uncharted 1. Kind of what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to talk about each game individually and try not to draw comparisons between them and just kind of give my objective opinion on that game. And then in the end, I'll kind of compare the games. Uncharted 1 almost made me stop playing and not experience the other two because the story is pretty slow. It's an okay story and it's serviceable. It's totally fine. There's nothing I have really against the story, but it's very slow paced until you get to kind of the halfway point of the game. And takes a while to get going. And there's just a lot of really stupid combat situations in this game that are not fun. Like, at first I thought it was just because I'm not a person who plays shooters. This is probably the most shootery game that I've ever beaten. Like, I've beaten Metroid Prime, but that's hardly a shooter. Like, the emphasis is not on the combat in that game. Like, there's plenty of combat, but it's not like you have a lock-on system in that game. It's not like you're spending a lot of time aiming. But they're like in the other 2 games, again, I said I wouldn't draw comparisons, but just to set this point up, there's a lot of more gimmicky combat. Here, there's none of that. Well, there's some of it. There's very small sections. But a lot of it is just you're going in an open area with various like knocked over pillars, boxes, and whatnot to hide behind. And you just are in a gunfight in that very open area, and that's it. There's no gimmick. You're just shooting guys. Sometimes it was fun. Sometimes it was extremely annoying. What I notice in shooting games as someone who doesn't play them is a lot of the campaign missions are almost like puzzles, where it's like you have to figure out what enemies to kill first. Maybe there's a turret that if you go out of your way to go to that turret, you'll be able to just wipe the floor with the rest of the enemies. Or maybe there's a hidden RPG or something like that. And I thought that's what I was getting out of Uncharted 1, where there was more like of that, like typical shooter type gameplay. But a lot of cases it's just plain like not unfair, but unfun, where it's like you would get to a very large section of enemies and you just hide behind a pillar, pop your head up every now and again, shoot, shoot, shoot. Oh, I'm about to die. Duck under cover, wait to recover, pop back up again, shoot, shoot, shoot. Oh, I'm about to die. And it's just that on repeat for a while. There's no fancy stuff. And it's, to be frank, pretty boring. Like, the combat is not the best part of Uncharted 1, and it felt like it was way overly emphasized. Like, there's way more combat in Uncharted 1, like percentage wise. More of the gameplay is combat in this game than in the other two, and the combat is way worse. Um, I've heard this talked about by other people, but Uncharted 1 just feels like not as intuitive on the aiming. Like, it just felt like I was missing a lot more. And like I said, just a lot of like stupid areas where you're literally just going in an open area and shooting people, and that's it. Like, there's nothing cool about it. There's no spectacle. Um, there's a few fun sections here and there. I really like the dungeon crawling elements of the first game. The story is, again, simplistic. You're searching for El Dorado, following this trail of clues hidden behind by Sir Francis Drake. And you realize, like, you're kind of racing this competing party to find this treasure, and their guys are who you're encountering for the entire game. Um, and then you realize, oh, El Dorado is cursed. Anyone who opens this casket gets turned into this zombie being. And there's the supernatural element that's introduced, and Nathan Drake is like, we can't let this be unleashed onto the world. The new mission is stop them from taking El Dorado off of this island. And the game gets really good as soon as the zombies get introduced. The zombies, like, it turns into almost a horror, well, not even almost, it literally is a horror game for like 2 chapters, because you get introduced to the zombies. They kill one of the, like, you have to fight alongside one of the villains, Eddie Raja. You have to fight alongside him because you both are in peril. He gets killed. And it's a good way to introduce the zombies, because it's like you're fighting with someone beside you that's taking aggro, and so you can kind of shoot from afar, where all the other times you shoot the zombies, you kind of have to run away and like run and gun and try to do, because you can't, like, they're not shooting you, like they're melee only, and they kill you in 2 hits. So regardless of difficulty, they always kill you in 2 hits. And you can't melee them because they just instantly dodge and kill you. And then the next portion of the game, you are trying to turn the power back on. So it's all dark, and it's like very Resident Evil type gameplay, where you have zombies crawling from the walls, dropping from the ceiling. And that part was legitimately fun, because you didn't have gunfire to worry about. You were just running and shooting. And it was a little gimmicky, but it's like, it was just fun. Like, I really enjoyed that part of the game. That's probably the best part, in my opinion. That's when I really got sold on the game. Like, for a while, I couldn't even really play for more than an hour and a half at a time, because like, I was just getting sick of it. Like, I would die over and over and over again. And at first, I just thought it was because I was bad. And that definitely did have something to do with it, because, like I said, this is my first real shooter that I ever beat. So I was bad in the beginning, but it didn't help that the combat in this game is not nearly as intuitive or engaging as the other ones. So what would happen in a lot of the early game shootouts, I would like take my time and then die on like one of the last enemies. And the way the game works is the checkpoint is all the way at the beginning of the enemy gauntlet. So I get put all the way back at the start after I like took my time and tried to take it easy so that I could get a grasp of everything that was going on. And then I just die, and then I get frustrated. So I just run in and start shooting and just try to get in their face with it. Not even hide. Obviously that didn't work, but yeah, the gameplay on Uncharted 1 is definitely frustrating, and it's definitely what holds it back. There's a couple really fun sections here and there, like the section where you're shooting a rocket launcher out the back of a car while Elena's driving. That was super fun because you have unlimited ammo, and you're just blowing up cars left and right. The same thing with the first jet ski segment. There's kind of these annoying parts of the game where you have to drive a jet ski and aim at the same time. You have to drive a jet ski and aim not only at guys, but there's also these explosive barrels floating at you against where you're trying to get to, and you have to shoot them because if they hit you, even on normal difficulty, it takes you down to pretty much like if you get tapped, you're dead. And on any difficulty higher than normal, it's an instant kill. So the first one isn't as bad because you have a rocket launcher with unlimited ammo. And from what I remember, don't quote me on this, but I don't think there's as much of a current going against you. The second time you do it, you're going along against the current in a river and you're getting actively pulled back and you're going up these little mini waterfalls as well, which sometimes the explosive barrels just come down the waterfall and you can't see them until they're right on top of you. So you have no shot at shooting them unless you died already and know they're there. So that section took me a good like 3 or 4 deaths to get through. And instead of a rocket launcher, you're stuck with a pistol. So quite a difference there. And the enemies have rocket launchers that they shoot at you instead. So it's like the tables have turned. And the jet ski is terrible to control too. It's a very drifty, like you almost go sideways every time you try to turn. And it's like impossible to drive. Like you can't drive and shoot at the same time either, which is kind of annoying. Like your forward momentum gets cut almost, especially since you're going against a current. As soon as you start aiming, you immediately kind of stop moving. And it's annoying because in order to make any progress, it's like you can't shoot, but you have to shoot because the barrels are coming at you. And it's kind of annoying. Like I said, the story of this game is fine. It's decently well-rounded. The characters are all really enjoyable, especially for their first introductions. Like, it kind of gets you hooked on all of those characters. But my final verdict on Uncharted 1 is probably like 7 out of 10. It was fun, but I don't see myself ever replaying it again. I like legitimately 2 and 3 I might go for the platinum trophy for and see everything there is to see, but I don't really have the desire to do that again with Uncharted 1. Like it's fine, but not one that I would really play again, especially after watching someone try like for the remake or remaster for the collection, they added brutal difficulty to every game. And the brutal difficulty, from what I've seen in Uncharted 1, is just plain unfair. Like, legitimately unfair. Like, you die in 1 hit, for the most part. Usually it's 1, sometimes it's 2. But it's like, when there's so many gunfights in that game, and the fact that there's that whole jet ski section with the explosive barrels and people shooting at you, I would never want to do it on brutal difficulty. It sounds like literally painful. But yeah, my final verdict on that one is a 7 out of 10. I don't see this one making my top 50 games of all time list. Maybe as an honorable mention, but I kind of doubt it. Then there's Uncharted 2. Uncharted 2 is legitimately a perfect game. Like, there's literally no problems that I have with it. There were a couple of annoying sections, but they were very short-lived. The one part that I didn't like, and this is partially because I'm a JRPG person, is the first time you encounter one of the Yetis. I thought it was an unwinnable fight, so I literally was running in circles for about, 10 minutes waiting for something to happen. Not 10 minutes. It was probably more like 2 to 3, but it felt like forever. I was expecting something to happen, and it never did. Because I tried to fight the Yeti, and I would die, instantly, and I just assumed he was unbeatable, because that's a typical JRPG trope to have an unbeatable boss. And I'm used to that. But he is indeed beatable. Well, not necessarily. I can't remember. I think something happens after you get him to a certain health threshold. but it like took long enough to trigger that I died like 2, maybe 3 times, and I just thought it was impossible. Um, but I really like Uncharted 2. It is solidly probably in my top 15 games at least of all time. The gameplay was amazing. Like every like section that I played, other than like small nitpicks, I loved. And the story was really well, like way above and beyond in than compared to Uncharted 1 as well. The opening is probably like one of the most perfect openings I have ever seen in a video game. Like it starts with you like you're literally like on the brink of death, hanging from a train, and it just gives you this climbing tutorial like it's not no big deal. Nathan Drake is about to die and you're climbing a friggin' train, but it's like press the X button to jump. Like you're going through a tutorial when he's in a near death situation. And then it's like you start having questions like how did he get here? And all through this tutorial where you're in peril, you're having flashback segments where you're actually figuring out what happened to get to that point. And it's super well done because the beginning of Uncharted 2 is relatively slow story-wise. And there's this like kind of like Uncharted 2 puts a lot more emphasis on stealth. And the beginning segment of like the flashback period, you're going through this museum to try to steal this artifact, and it's all stealth, tranquilizer guns and everything. And it's pretty slow gameplay wise. It's not like out there and in your face actiony, like especially compared to the later parts of the game. But you're doing this, and then you get put in the flashback or the flash forward as well, where you're on the brink of death going through this snowy landscape and you have no idea what the heck is going on. So it's perfect. The story is very well-rounded and well-paced as well. I don't have really any complaints that I can think of story-wise. And honestly, like I really liked I think you are going through the Himalayas. I could be wrong on that and totally just made that up, but I think you're going through the Himalayas. And it honestly reminded me of the lore of the Expedition Everest Disney World ride. Like where there's these mysterious Yetis and you're going through the mountains. And then it's revealed later, plot twist, the Yetis aren't actually Yetis. They're just people who have been powered up by the stone, which you are then trying to stop the villain from getting because it gives him this ultimate power. The one thing that I will say, Uncharted 1's final boss fight is pretty pathetic. It's a quick, like, you're going through the final bad guy, Navarro. You're going through his ship. You're killing his goons along the way. He has I think it's like a Desert Eagle that will one-shot you if you poke out your head out of the ground for too long, and he's always aiming at you. Not out of the ground, but out of cover, you know what I mean. And then when you get to the top of the ship, it's like 3 or 4 quick time events and he's dead. In Uncharted 2, they tried to make a real final boss fight, but it doesn't really work. All it amounts to is you're literally running in circles, shooting these blue balls, and because they blow up, and that's how you do damage to him. And it's just you literally running around in circles, avoiding him, and then turning around and shooting the balls when he gets close. And it's a really tedious and annoying final boss fight. Like, it's like they tried to make a more gameplay oriented boss fight and it just didn't work. But some of the action sequences in this game are like the most fun and the most engaged I have ever been, I think, playing a game. Like, yeah, there's points in Xenoblade Chronicles where I can't take my eyes from the screen because it's a really cool cutscene. But gameplay-wise, Xenoblade doesn't do that as much. Like, I can't put those games down because they're addicting. But, like, I had moments where I was, like, shaking almost from, like, the pure, like, adrenaline that was going through my veins in some of these parts. Like, you are literally fighting enemies in a collapsing building as you are getting shot at by a helicopter. Like, that's freaking crazy, and you're like running across the roofs of the buildings trying to escape the helicopter, and then you find an RPG or some sort of grenade launcher or something, and that's how you blow up the helicopter. And then there's the train segment, which is perfection. Maybe not perfection, but it's super fun. Like, it's iconic. You are running along the roof of a moving train. Enemies are climbing up and you have to shoot them as you go. And eventually there's a helicopter in this section too that you have to take out with a turret that's on the train. Like, it's actually crazy how many amazing gameplay segments there are in this game. And then there's one, like, the whole tank one too, where you're going through this village that's being destroyed by a tank, and you're constantly like running away from it, trying to find cover while it's actively blowing up the city around you. Like, it's so engaging and so good. Like, that's why I say this game is basically perfect. There's things to nitpick, there's things that I didn't like, but they're so small and minuscule, I still call it a perfect game. Like, Uncharted 2 is a definite 10 out of 10 and has solidified its spot in like my top 15, top 10 games of all time. Uncharted 3, I'm speeding up a little bit because this video is getting a little long, but it is a review of 3 games after all. Uncharted 3, I was talking to my friend the other day. Uncharted 3 probably has the best gameplay in the series. I do think the game, well, again, of the 3, you know what I mean. Uncharted 3 probably has the best game of the original gameplay of the best original trilogy, even better than 2's. But the story, the more I think about the story, the more it pisses me off. And it might just be because I was so invested in these characters now that I'd seen them for 2 previous games that I wanted them done well. But Uncharted 3's story, the more I think about it, the more plot holes I find, the more like convoluted it becomes. And it even felt to me like the first half of the game was like almost a completely different game than the second half, story-wise. Like, I would like think back to things that we were doing in the beginning of the game and I'd be like, that was this game? Like, it just felt like dissonance almost, like it didn't agree with each other. Like, there's a part where Charlie, a new character that's introduced that sadly gets shelved halfway through the game, even probably before that, more like a third through the game. Him and Chloe kind of get shelved in this game for no reason. Well, there is a reason, and it's because the voice actor for Charlie actually got cast in The Hobbit at the same time, so he had to cut his time short, and they had to just break his leg in the plot to make it so that he wasn't in the rest of the game. Although I'm glad they didn't kill him off, they just broke his leg. They very easily could have killed him in that scene. But there's a part where Charlie literally shoots the villain, one of the villains, like, at least in the upper shoulder area. Like, it seemed like a chest shot. Like, it seemed like, yeah, he should have been dead, but it could have been the shoulder. But then he just shows up like 2 minutes later, no visible damage done, just walking totally fine, no blood, no bullet hole in his suit. He's totally good. And the game even acknowledges this too. Like, Charlie's like, how the hell did this guy survive? I shot him. And it's never explained how he does. Like, people kind of speculate that this guy, I can't even remember his name right now, and I don't want to like say the wrong names. I'm not even going to try to remember. People theorize that he has more going on with him than the game explains. There's 2 theories. One is that he's just wearing a bulletproof vest, simple as that. But there's also no bullet hole in his suit, so I don't know about that. The second theory is that he's actually one of the djinns that they're trying to, like, because they're trying to free the djinns, the villains are, and that's the whole reason that they try to find this Atlantis in the desert, is so that they can free the djinns. People think that this guy is a djinn, and he's trying to free the rest of his, like, djinn buddies or whatever, and that's how he survives the bullet blast. That's how he has all this mind control tech that he um, just uses randomly throughout the story. Um, I don't know. It's weird. It just felt like so much wasn't explored. Like, at first I was like, yeah, the story was okay. But the more I think about it, the more I realize it kind of falls apart because so many things go unexplained. So many things go unexplained. And the one thing that felt really weird is the end of the game felt like it came really fast. Like it felt like all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is the last chapter. um, and it just felt like there was not much buildup for the villains. Like, I would say that these villains are arguably the best in the trilogy because you actually see them around and they have history with Sully and Nate. But they don't really explain what their plans are. Like, I don't really, maybe am remembering or misremembering, or I don't remember, but I don't think they ever explain why they want this treasure, like why they want this power. If it's literally just for the power or what the deal is or what they plan to use it for. I don't know. I have no clue. But the gameplay, the gameplay is amazing. Like, I was talking up the set pieces in Uncharted 2. This one has the best in the trilogy by far. Well, not by far. It's close to 2. It's close to 2, but it's better in my opinion. The horseback riding segment was my favorite part of the entire trilogy. Like, where you're riding a horse and you're trying to chase down these vehicles. You shoot the guys out of the backs of the trucks. You jump into the trucks. Then you shoot some motorcycle guys. You jump back on your horse and you continue to chase the vehicles. It's super fun. And it's almost similar to the jet ski part of 1, but you have way more control over your vehicle being the horse. Like, you can actually have forward momentum while you're shooting. What do you know? That fixes all the problems. Then there's the part where you're literally escaping a sinking ship. That was super cool. That was super engaging. There was one other, and now I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. Oh, the whole plane sequence, the thing that they put in the movie. That was super fun too. You're trying to beat up this guy, and the only way to really get him out of your way, you're fighting in the plane. You pull the parachute on the cargo, and you send the cargo flying down with him, but you get sucked out as well, and you basically have to climb back up the cargo to get back in the plane. And masterfully done. It's so good. Like I said, Uncharted 3, probably almost the most fun I've had playing a video game. Like, the gameplay segments were that good. They were incredible. The combat wise, they focus a lot more on melee. Like, there's more combos you can do. There's grappling, which was like totally new. The game opens with you in a bar fight, and the tutorial is like, you're literally in a bar fight in a suit. It's awesome. The whole first tutorial of the game is melee combat based. And I actually really like that in this game. There's more actual stealth focused sections here too. And this one actually did make some of the fights seem almost like a puzzle, where I would like go through, stealth kill a few enemies, and then kind of go out in the open and be like, did I kill enough with the stealth to be able to take on the rest? And then I'd die in like 5 seconds and be like, nope, got to do it a different way. And it was actually super fun to do it that way instead of like Uncharted 1, where I was like just running and shooting a lot of the time, or hiding and shooting. The one thing, well, before I get to the bad parts, this game also added throwing back grenades, And that aspect alone is going to make it really hard to even go back to Uncharted 2, just because that's such a brilliant feature to be able to actually throw back grenades. Because a lot of the time in 1 and 2, you're hiding behind cover and then they flush you out by throwing a grenade in there and you have nowhere to go. You literally pop out to get away from the grenade and you get killed instantly. So it's like you have no way to win there. In Uncharted 3, they add the ability to throw the grenades back at the enemies, and it adds so much to the gameplay, actually. Like, there would be sections where I'd be running low on ammo, so my source of, like, killing the enemies would be waiting for them to throw a grenade at me so I could kill them with their own grenade. And I actually really liked that. The one thing, they switched their checkpoint system for some unknown reason, where before, if you got killed, you got sent back to the beginning of the fight, which, yes, is annoying, but I kind of see why they did it now, because in Uncharted 3, there's parts where in some of the longer sections, you just get put, like, you randomly get checkpointed in the middle of a fight, and then when you die, you get respawned somewhere completely random, and sometimes I would have no idea where I was. I'd die because there were enemies behind, like, it spawns you under cover at least, but there'd be, like, enemies behind me, and I have no idea what was going on because I wasn't anywhere near where I died. So I would die, like, multiple times just trying to get my bearings and figure out where I was. One specific instance of this that's really annoying is towards the end of the game where Nate drinks the hallucination water and he's seeing these demon guys. These demon guys are really annoying to kill, and I feel like they definitely do more damage to you as well than the regular enemies. I could be wrong on that, but it felt like I was dying faster to them. They have significantly more health than any other enemies as well. It's basically like the supernatural, like zombie from 1 and Yetis / the blue people from 2. It doesn't last very long. Those segments are like, it's literally like maybe half a chapter that you have to deal with them. But it's the last fight that you have against them. I died once to them, and I think I died like 5 to 10 more times after that because it just respawned me in the middle of nowhere near cover. And there were guys like surrounding me. Like I literally had like 0.5 seconds to get out of there, get lucky, and hope that they didn't shoot me because one of them had a shotgun, which is basically an instant kill at close range. And I just had to pray that I didn't get hit. That was one part that was really annoying gameplay-wise, but it was short-lived because once I got past it, you don't encounter them ever again. It was just the last part that you deal with them. One small note that I wanted to add that I really appreciate about the plot of 3 is I really like that they're heavily foreshadowing and setting up Sully's death. And then he dies, which is expected. But then they Uno reverse it and be like, actually, you were hallucinating the whole time. He's not dead. I actually really liked that. Although, one comment that I did see about 3's plot that I do agree with is there's way too many twists and turns. Like, it felt like there were plot twists just to have plot twists. And there's, like, no real reason for a lot of them. But the Sully one I really like because they are building up to him dying. And he does get shot. Visibly shot, and then the real plot twist is that he doesn't die, which I thought was kind of cool. The final verdict that I would say I would give Uncharted 3 is probably like an 8.5, 9 out of 10. It might still fit into as a matter of fact, it probably will still fit into my top 50 games of all time, but it doesn't nearly achieve 2. If the plot was better, it would be better than 2, but the plot is just so convoluted that it's really bothersome. Like, Uncharted isn't like a story that's extremely grounded. It's got supernatural elements. It's not the perfect storyline. But at the same time, Uncharted 3 is just kind of, it's a big mess. in terms of story in a lot of aspects. And that's what really bothered me about it. But the game itself is some of the most fun I've had playing a video game in a while. Like, there were some extremely addictive segments to where I couldn't put the game down, especially towards the end. Like, I remember, I think I got to like chapter 20 or something like that. And I was like, this was yesterday. And I was like, do I save the rest of the game for tomorrow? I checked like my progress by saving. It said I was 94% done. And I was like, I'm just going to finish it. I finish it, look at my clock, and it's an hour later. Oh, speaking of, I was talking about final boss fights in the other two games. I think this one does it best. It's quick time events back to kind of the way one was, but it's a bit more extended, and I feel like the circumstances you're in contribute to it as well. You're literally in the middle of a falling city fighting for your life. I feel like the quick time events work here. And it's not all quick time events. It's mostly a melee fight. And there's a segment where you have to shoot him because he's about to drop a rock on Sully's head and actually kill him for real. But I really like the final boss fight in this one. I know I said I was going to compare the three games at the end, but honestly, I don't want this video to end up being 50 minutes long. So I'm going to end it off here. But my final verdict, again, on the three games, I would give Uncharted 1 about a 7 out of 10. It was okay. Probably wouldn't play it again. Uncharted 2, 10 out of 10. Perfect game in pretty much every way. Uncharted 3, an 8.5, 9 out of 10-ish. A game that is some of the most fun that I've ever had, and I think the gameplay actually exceeds Uncharted 2 in a lot of ways, but the plot holds it back massively. But because it's not a game that, if the plot was bad in a game like Xenoblade, it would heavily impact its score because it's a story-based game. And while there is definitely a narrative in Uncharted, it's not necessarily the focus. The focus is much more on the gameplay than on the story. But I hope you all enjoyed this discussion, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.